Alright, what's up guys? Welcome to Promotech, thanks for tuning in. Today we're tearing the Pixel 11 Pro XL apart, all the way down to the motherboard, because Google is calling this their most durable Pixel Pro ever, and claims like that don't get to just sit there unchallenged. What we found once we actually opened this thing up isn't a simple pass or fail. It's a phone built with real long-term thinking in some places and quietly cut corners in others. And the gap between those two decisions is a lot bigger than Google wants you to notice from the keynote stage. Let's dive right into the video because before we even open the case, the built-to-last claim gets tested 3 separate ways, and it doesn't pass all 3. Start with the scratch test, since that's the headline claim. Google says the display is more than twice as scratch-resistant as previous Pixels, thanks to a proprietary 800-nanometer coating sitting on top of Gorilla Glass Victus 2 and underneath the usual oleophobic layer. Run it side by side against last year's model, and at a level 6 scratch, sure, the marks are noticeably fainter, that part's genuinely real. But push to level 7, and the deeper grooves come back exactly the same as always, completely untouched by that extra layer. So the coating isn't scratch-proof, it's a scratch softener, built to make daily nicks less visible while doing nothing for the damage that actually matters months down the line. Then there's the fire test, and credit where it's due, the Pixel holds its own for a full 20 seconds against direct flame without failing, which is more than a lot of flagships manage. And the bend test is where this phone genuinely impresses, barely any flex under real pressure. Structurally one of the stiffest Pixels Google has ever shipped. 2 out of 3 claims hold up under real stress. The third one is doing more marketing than engineering, and that split sets up everything we find once we actually crack this thing open. Before we even get to the internals, it's worth walking the frame itself, because this is where built to last either gets backed up or exposed early. The volume rocker and power button are both fully removable rather than molded into the frame, which sounds minor until you realize it's exactly the part that fails first on most phones after a couple years of pocket wear. The bottom edge has 2 chainmail style mesh coverings over the speaker openings, dense enough that they're not falling out on their own, ever, and the charging port itself sits behind a gray rubber ring, specifically there to maintain that IP68 water resistance rating. Up top, there's a dedicated noise-canceling microphone hole separate from the main mic array. A small addition that only matters in loud environments, but shows Google sweating details most people will never consciously notice. None of this is exciting on a spec sheet. All of it is the unglamorous, unmarketed engineering that actually determines whether a phone still feels solid in year 3. And on this front, Google clearly didn't cut corners. Now here's where the teardown gets interesting, because the moment the back panel comes off, you find a detail that tells you Google actually planned for this phone to be opened by real people, not just factory technicians. The screws holding the internals together aren't all one color. A specific set is colored green, and that green isn't decorative. It's a sequence marker showing exactly which order components come out in. No manual required. Pair that with the fact that Google sells genuine replacement parts directly through iFixit, and you get a phone where the 2 most common repairs, screen and battery, are roughly 10-minute jobs with nothing more than a heat gun and a pry tool, as long as you respect the ribbon cable sitting close to the display edge. Compare that to how most manufacturers handle repairability, treated as a checkbox mentioned once a year in a press release. Google built an actual system here, color-coded, documented, backed by real parts availability, and that system is a bigger long-term win for you than almost anything printed on the spec sheet, because it's the difference between replacing a cracked screen and replacing the entire phone. But then the teardown reveals a decision that goes the completely opposite direction, and it's the one that's going to bother anyone who followed the Pixel Fold closely earlier this year. That phone shipped with a composite glass fiber back panel, genuinely more shatter-resistant than standard glass. Peel back the Pixel 11 Pro XL, and you find plain satin glass instead. The same shatter risk as basically every other glassback flagship on the market, on a phone supposedly built to be Google's most durable Pro model yet. That's not a technical limitation. Google already proved they can build the tougher version. It exists, it's sitting on shelves right now in a different device. This is a cost decision on a phone that's already carrying a triple camera system, a larger battery, and a beefed-up vapor chamber, and it's the kind of quiet downgrade that only becomes obvious the first time this phone hits concrete at the wrong angle, long after the review units have convinced everyone it's basically indestructible. Underneath that back glass, the battery tells its own version of this story. It's a 5,000 mAh cell, solidly sized, but it's still glued into the chassis firmly enough that the included pull tabs barely help at all when you actually try to lift it out. That's a trade-off most people never think about until they need a battery replacement 3 years in. Glued cells are more secure against rattling and moisture intrusion, but they turn what should be an easy swap into a genuinely fiddly job even with the right tools. Right next to it, Google tucked in a haptic vibrator motor and a loudspeaker housing packed with internal damping material, small components, but exactly the kind that fail quietly over time on cheaper phones and keep working reliably on ones where someone actually spec'd them properly. Then you get to the cameras, and this is where the internal engineering gets genuinely clever but also quietly uneven. Pull the camera assembly, and you find the 50-megapixel main sensor, the 48-megapixel ultra-wide, and the 48-megapixel 5x telephoto all wired together and removed as one bound unit rather than three separate modules. Google did that on purpose, because when sensors are physically locked together instead of floating independently, switching between lenses mid-shot stays smoother and more color consistent. But look closer at what's actually inside the unit, and the story gets more uneven. The main sensor gets full optical image stabilization. The telephoto gets its own internal stabilization too. The ultra-wide gets none at all, nothing. The one camera most likely to be used handheld in tight spaces is the one Google decided didn't need the extra hardware. That's not an oversight, that's a budget line. OIS costs money and adds thickness, and Google clearly ranked the ultra-wide as the camera you're least likely to know to shake on. Combine that with the fact that the whole assembly comes out as a single bound piece, and you've got a phone that trades cheap single sensor repairs for a smoother shooting experience, the opposite trade-off Google made almost everywhere else in this device. Worth noting too, the front-facing 42-megapixel selfie camera gets no stabilization at all, which tracks. Google clearly drew a hard line between what gets the expensive hardware and what doesn't, and that line runs straight through the middle of this camera system. And there's one more thing worth pulling apart before we put this phone back together, and it's easy to miss because it's not glamorous. That copper vapor chamber sitting under the battery is genuinely large, genuinely serious cooling hardware resting directly against the Tensor G6 with a layer of thermal paste holding the two together, non-anodized aluminum on the chip side to maximize heat transfer rather than protect against corrosion. That's real, sustained performance-focused engineering, the kind you only add if you expect people to push this chip hard for years, not just during a benchmark run at launch. Meanwhile, the outside of the phone tells a completely different story. Safe muted colors, a frame Google calls spacecraft-grade recycled aluminum that mostly just blends into whatever surface you set it on, and a highlight LED ring on the back that functions as, at the end of the day, a slightly over-engineered flashlight. Google has roughly 1% of the global smartphone market, meaning they have essentially nothing to lose by taking real design risks, and yet the ambition is clearly all internal. Every ounce of boldness went into the parts you'll never see, while the parts you touch every single day stayed deliberately, almost defensively boring. Now here's the thing, over 70% of you watching this aren't subscribed yet, and I'm not going to sit here and beg you about it. I just think if you made it this far into a full teardown, past the marketing headline, and into what's actually screwed together inside this phone, you're exactly the kind of person this channel is built for. We go past the keynote slides here every single time. If that's your kind of thing, hit subscribe and just quietly become part of the group that actually knows what's under the glass before everyone else does. So knowing everything we just pulled apart, the real question isn't whether the Pixel 11 Pro XL is built to last. It's built to last in the ways Google decided were worth paying for: the vapor chamber, the repair system, the frame rigidity, the sealed ports, and quietly not built to last in the ways that were more expensive: the glass panel, the ultra-wide stabilization, the glued-in battery, the scratch coating past a certain point. Drop your take in the comments on which of those trade-offs you'd actually pay extra to fix, because I've got a feeling this one's going to split people right down the middle, and I want to see where you land. Take care and stay safe. I'll see you in the next one soon. Cheers. Bye-bye.